Welcome to Monday, February 5th, 2018, City of Lebanon Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. This is a public meeting and everyone will get a chance to speak that wants to. We need everybody to sign in over here if you intend on speaking. Two things I'm going to ask. Number one, I'm guessing there'll be several people want to talk. We're going to limit your conversation to 3 minutes. That's number one. Number two, if somebody else before you has spoken, we would appreciate it if you just pass and do it that way. We'll have our call to order. Would you call the roll?
Gordon Perry.
Here.
Bruce Pauley.
Here.
Ron Edwards.
Here.
Chad Kiger.
Here.
And Lori Gross. Here.
Okay, we do have a full quorum tonight. Next item of business is the approval of minutes from the January meeting. Has everybody had a chance to glance at them? Anybody have any questions or concerns?
I make a motion we approve the minutes as written.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that carried. We have two items of old business that are going to be continued on till the March meeting. One of them will be Iron Man Properties. The other one will be Starlight Leasing. Those will be continued till the March 5th meeting. The only item tonight is a new business, is docket 1805. The Youth and Family Health Network requesting a use variance to permit a recovery group home to be located at 227 East Superior Street here in Lebanon, and the property is zoned MF, multifamily residential. Okay, Ben, would you like to continue?
Absolutely. Good evening, board members. I'm going to walk through some of the high points or key points in the Board of Zoning Appeals staff report for this item. Walk through the findings of fact and staff's recommendation. And then I also do have two letters that we received from neighboring property residents or property owners that I would want to read into the record to make sure they're in the record for the public portion of the meeting. So we walk through some of the high points of the staff report first. As Mr. Pauley mentioned, this is at 227 East Superior Street, just around the corner from where we're at now. It's about a third of an acre property. The home's about 3,000 square feet. According to property record card from Boone County GIS, the property is a 4+ bedroom home, currently operating as a duplex, according to the record. It's one of the larger lot sizes on the block, a little over a third of an acre. The range is about 0.1 to about 0.44 acres. Property also contains an accessory structure and fenced-in backyard. This block of Superior Street is zoned multifamily and contains a mix of single-family, multifamily, owner-occupied, and renter-occupied homes. So I will walk through some of the high points of the application. I will leave it up to the applicant to go through the details of their organization and how this home will be operated, but I'll talk about a few of the high points from the staff report. So in determining whether this was required a use variance or not, this is a recovery home. Our Unified Development Ordinance has a definition for group home, and this will operate similarly to a group home with one difference. Our definition of group home specifies a certain Indiana agency that certifies and oversees each of the operations. In this case, this is overseen by a different organization. Therefore, it doesn't technically meet our definition of group home. This is a use, however, that is not contemplated in our UDO, and when the UDO suggests if it's a use that's not contemplated in the use table, that it's not permitted by right. So anything that's not showing up in the use table needs to come to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a use variance request, thus the request that we have this evening. So while this will operate similarly to a group home, it doesn't quite meet that definition, so we had to bring it to the board. So again, I'll let the applicant walk through the specifics, but the applicant is, the organization is Youth and Family Health Network. It's a local organization. Again, it's part of a statewide organization, the Indiana Association of Recovery Residences. And they are proposing to establish a Level 3 certified women's recovery home at the subject property. And this would house 10 female residents and 1 full-time care provider. The home would provide a long-term transitional housing solution for recovering addicts, drug and alcohol re-entering society. As I mentioned, there is a full-time care provider, so that person will be on site at all times. They'll have complete oversight over each of the residents, providing them care while residing at the home, but also connecting them and treating them in counseling programs. The residents do not have their own transportation, so there'll be no vehicles there at the site other than the care provider and pops a visit by the director of the organization. And they're not permitted to have guests, so only vehicles present on the property will be supervisors and directors on occasion. Transportation will be arranged for the residents and provided to them as needed. Parking for the supervisor and director will be provided at the rear of the property, off the alley, and all ingress, egress will be through the rear door of the home rather than the front. Youth and Family Health Network is committed to maintaining the integrity of the exterior and interior of the home and ensure that the recovery home remains visually integrated into the neighborhood. Just one thing I wanted, yes, sir.
We got a gentleman that can't hear.
I can't hear a word you're saying.
It's, is it not? Is it not?
It's really quiet.
I'm sorry. I will move the microphone closer. And the applicant will go into more detail on each of these items I'm suggesting too. So, and one thing I wanted to emphasize as it relates to this application, individuals, alcoholism and drug addictions are defined as a mental illness by the Americans with Disabilities Act, which offers them protections, and also the Fair Housing Act, the Federal Fair Housing Act, and the city attorney, I guess, can fill in where I'm missing any details. And they offer them some protections as far as providing housing and how a local government can oversee or such uses. So as such, local regulation of recovery homes, such as the proposed, is limited to general conditions that may be applied to other multifamily or group home type uses. As I mentioned, we talked a little bit about parking, strain on city utilities, or something that provides some sort of undue financial hardship to the city. That's really all from the perspective of local government. That's how we can regulate a use such as this. We can make no decisions for or against, or any imposed conditions that can be based solely on the type of individual that may reside in the residence. This would be considered discrimination by the Federal Fair Housing Act. In addition, any evaluation of findings of fact cannot be based on conclusions drawn by the individuals potentially residing in the home. So we are limited to looking at whether this use would create a financial or administrative hardship on the city. We cannot review this based on the individuals living there, as they're protected by the Federal Fair Housing Act. So now for the record, I will go through the 5 findings of fact. The first criteria is approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Staff analysis, the variance of use to permit the women's recovery home within the multifamily residential zoning district will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. The zoning of the property provides for multi-tenant structures, and the block where the subject property is located contains a mix of single-family and multifamily residents already. The level of occupancy proposed by the applicant fits the intent of the multifamily zoning district and will not cause undue stress to the public services provided to the property. Criteria number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The requested use variance would not affect the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, in a substantially adverse manner. This residential block already contains a mix of single-family, multifamily, owner-occupied, and renter-occupied housing, and the proposed recovery home fits within this mix of uses. The applicant intends to maintain the single-family character of the exterior of the home and provide adequate parking area to the rear of the property such that there will not be excessive vehicle parking on the street. Criteria number 3, the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved. The proposed use, while similar in overall characteristics to a group home, which is defined in the UDO, does not specifically adhere to any current use definitions and is therefore not contemplated in Lebanon's permitted uses for the zoning districts. When not contemplated, the use is not permitted by right anywhere in the city and requires a variance of use. In this particular case, the applicant is proposing a recovery home at a residence zone multifamily that has historically been used multifamily and has a home and lot large enough to accommodate this use. Criteria number 4, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought. As previously stated, the use proposed by the applicant while representing a need in the community is not permitted by right anywhere in the city and is not currently contemplated in the UDO use table or definition of uses. The strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance would not permit this use in the city. The Federal Fair Housing Act indicates that this use should be contemplated no differently than any other group home or multifamily use in order to avoid discriminating against a protected class. Criteria number 5, the approval does not interfere substantially with the City of Lebanon Comprehensive Plan. The City of Lebanon Comprehensive Plan designates this area for residential uses. The proposed use is residential in nature and meets the goals established in the comprehensive plan. Staff recommendation. The City of Lebanon Planning Staff recommends approval of the variance of use request to permit a recovery group home in the multifamily residential zoning district subject to the following conditions. Number 1, that the approval of the variance of use does not run with the land and is limited to this applicant, Youth and Family Health Network, and to the proposed use. Any change in the organization providing oversight to the facility or significant change in the operation would require review and approval by the Board of Zoning and Appeals. This also applies if this use would go away, this would transition back to a multifamily use. So, number 2, that the recovery group home is limited to 10 residents and 1 full-time care provider on site. Any increase in the number of residents would require review and approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And number 3, that the applicant provide 3 paved parking spaces accessed by the alley adjacent and to the south of the subject property. I will point out before I read these letters, because they mentioned one thing in here that we did correct. We originally sent out, our staff did, notices to adjacent property owners, and we made an unfortunate error in the date. We included the January board date rather than the February date, so there was some confusion with that. But we did correct that and resend notices to all required property owners in time for the meeting. So we met the 10-day notice requirement. So those do get sent out. So one of these letters references the date in the original letter that we sent, which was an error on our part, and we did resend notification. So the first letter that I received is from Alvin and Pamela Beeson. They're at 403 East Superior Street in Lebanon. To the Lebanon Board of Zoning Appeals, because we'll be out of state on February 5th when this proposal is considered, we wish to offer the following. We are adamantly opposed to the passage of this amendment, changing the variance of use of 227 East Superior Street to allow the recovery group home to be located there. We are mainly concerned with the effect the presence of the group home will have on our property value. We believe that any homeowner would be similarly concerned. Our grandchildren play on the shared sidewalk in front of this house and ours, and we do not want them to be subjected to possible offenders who have not yet recovered. We are very sure that any board member who votes for this change does not live in our area and will not be affected in any way by the location of the home. We ask that you consider the following before approving this change. Would I want it in my neighborhood? While we totally understand the need for such a facility, we do not want it in our neighborhood. There must be some currently unused commercial or other property available where the proposed rezoning will not affect the property values of surrounding residential homes. Thank you for considering our thoughts and opinions. Number 2, a letter we received is from Walt and Chris Johnstone, and they own properties in the area at 403, 407, and 411 and a half South East Street. They do reside in 121 Feeser Court in Clayton, North Carolina. We received your letter of notice to neighboring property owners concerning docket 18-5, Youth and Family Health Network, on the application for a use variance to operate a recovery group home to be located at 227 East Superior Street in Lebanon. The date of the public hearing was January 5th, 2018 at 7 p.m. The letter was written January 19th. We received it Saturday, January 26th. What's wrong with this picture? No advance notice. How would you feel? Again, we corrected that. We are writing because we strongly object to this use variance change. Why would you want this type of facility in a residential neighborhood where there are small children? We have put significant effort into our properties to upgrade the neighborhood and feel that this would have a negative impact on all our hard work. Sincerely, Walt and Chris Johnstone. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board before the applicant speaks.
Ben, I have a couple for you. The current structure as it is right now, can it house 11 people?
Yeah, I believe it's either a 4 or 5 bedroom home, and so they have shared facilities in there. They're not individual apartments per se. So they have shared restroom and kitchen facilities like a group home typically would have. So it's about 3,000 square feet. In my mind, I think it does have adequate facilities for that number of people.
So there's no, the youth variance has nothing to do with, they're going to use the facility as it is without having to make additions or changes or what they're proposing. They're not talking about adding, putting additions or anything. It's as it stands, as it appears on the street right now.
I'll let the applicant answer any questions about what they may be doing on the interior, but it's my understanding that they're not making any exterior changes or additions to the home.
The 3 parking spaces that the city is requesting, that's in addition to what's currently there now?
We would just want there to be 3 paved spaces back there. I believe it's a gravel area right now behind there, so we'd want them to pave 3 parking spaces for use by the staff that would be there. As I suggested in the report, that the actual residents are not permitted to have their own transportation, so there are no vehicles there associated with the residents. It's just the 1 full-time staff and an occasional director visit who would oversee that facility. And there is on-street parking on Superior Street also.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
Do they have to have a commercial fire rating or anything?
Not that I'm aware of, but we can certainly double check that with our fire marshal. This, again, it operates similar to some of these other homes that have been transferred into multifamily uses. So we can ask that question.
I think that is something that ought to be added to your staff recommendations. If it does pass, number 4 would be contact the fire department and have them approve, disapprove.
Sure, absolutely.
Do they just have 1 full-time employee for 10 people for 1 full week?
They would be the full-time care manager will live there 100% of the time.
They live there at the
Yes,
whole time?
yeah, they
Are
live
they
there.
also the ones that take them and return them from shopping and whatever?
Not necessarily. They have a group of volunteers that will also provide some transportation services, but it's all organized by that full-time care manager.
So they won't be walking the street?
Again, I'll let the applicant discuss some of these items specifically.
For clarification, Ben, you said that should this organization that's looking for this variance, if they change, if it changes, it reverts back to what it's currently under. Not that I understand it, and I guess we'll ask them. Is there any possibility that this organization gets absolved or brought into a larger organization, or there's a handoff somewhere? Any change from what is in front of us will require them to come back to the BZA, correct?
That's that first condition, yeah. So if they were bought out or they folded and another organization came in to run it, they would be required to come back for review.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I ask you or the applicant, but what about guests? Are they allowed guests?
My understanding is they are not, but I'll let it make sure that she clarifies that.
Sorry, Ben, one more question for
Sure.
you. Talked about the fire department. As far as this being a group home or anything, do we as a city have anything that says building inspections, something has to be, I mean, I guess I look at this as kind of a commercial property, or it's used in a different way than a standard home and family.
Yeah, I think any inspections that may be required would be through the fire department. So our building inspector wouldn't inspect anything unless they were making modifications that required a building permit.
Okay.
So I'll confirm with the fire department, their fire marshal, if there's anything that they would need to review in this case with the transition.
Thank you.
I guess just kind of for the record, I read in some of the paperwork this afternoon that somebody was thinking that this might be turned into a commercial property. I guess just for the record, that it will stay residential.
This is by definition a residential use. It is a for-profit organization that will be running it, however.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, the applicant care to step forward and give us what's going on?
Hello, how is everyone?
Fine.
Good, how are you?
I want to thank you, first of all, for your consideration. Mr. Edwards.
Need your name and address.
I apologize. My name is Michelle Standiford. I'm president and founder of Youth and Family Health Network, and our office is located at 114 South Meridian Street here in Lebanon. Okay? And I do have a couple of things. I'm hoping that in answering a couple of questions that you have already asked, I may address those right here. And then if there's additional questions, please let me know, unless you want me to answer questions first that you may have.
Go ahead and
Okay.
give your little speech.
Okay, thank you.
If there's anything to ask, we'll ask at the end.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, Youth and Family Health Network is a Boone County not-for-profit organization, and it was founded, we started in March of 2016, and actually became official in December of 2016 with all the necessary, the Attorney General's office and all the other entities that we had to get approved through. There's been several questions asked, and we know that there's been much talk on social media. I chose to just kind of lay back and watch what the questions are so that I could properly address them in front of everyone without causing more confusion and more undue posting, okay, on Facebook. So to do that, there were some questions that I wanted to go ahead and answer right away. One of the questions is, why did we pick this location? And the reasons, some of the reasons is we base size, the size of this property, the lot, the way it sits on the street, the location, the cost, and the current zoning, with the current zoning already being multifamily. Evidence shows that homes of this type, transitional houses, sober living houses, recovery houses, whatever you want to call them, the outcomes are much better when you can bring together 6 or more people in the same path, the same journey for recovery. So a facility that would enable us to provide housing for 10 is a key number for us. Based also on research, which I have provided, and I've cited some of those if you would like to have it. Housing works best when it's close to public transportation, provides job opportunities, and has other supportive services such as AA, NA, and other self-help groups. So while I see that many people don't understand why we didn't just put this out in the country somewhere away from everybody, and while that might be a perfect setting for us, we would very much like that solitude. It's not the perfect setting for recovery for people, and it doesn't provide them the services readily that they need available to them. I've been asked what's the projected time frame on being able to open this house to residents, and the prediction is by the end of March. Again, the maximum house would be 10 clients and a house manager. All residents, the people in the home would be residents of Boone County, and those who have ties to Boone County via family who need to remain in this county so that they can reintegrate with their support systems here. Children will not reside at the property. Regarding guests, they will have 1 day a week designated that they can have visitation by someone, or they can get off-site passes to go visit. So not all visitation will be on-site. Some of it will be off-site. None of it will be overnight. So when I say that I probably did not define it well enough, but there will be no overnight guest. But there will be once a week to where somebody could have someone visit. And that'll be designated by the Director of Housing and the Housing Manager. The majority of the residents, people have asked about drug screenings. How do we know that the people are not currently using? How do we know that they're in sobriety? The majority of the residents will already be getting drug tested through community corrections or probation, and then our organization reserves the right to also random drug screen. And the residents are aware of that. They're aware of the rules and the guidelines when they go in. They sign agreements to these conditions. The house manager that we speak of will be somebody that meets criteria based on evidence-based practices that have been done across the United States. Some of that includes, as a guideline for Youth and Family Health Network, we want to go just a step above that to where that house manager will need to be CPR certified and also be a certified recovery coach within the state of Indiana. And a certified recovery coach is somebody who has had 40 hours of instruction on harm reduction techniques, abstinence techniques, and forms to help this population find recovery. Residents who relapse, it's very possible someone may relapse. Residents who relapse will not be permitted to remain at the house. However, we will link them to alternative housing options. So should they relapse at our house? No, they can no longer stay there during that time, but we have the networking capabilities and the partnerships to help them get to detox and go for the required period of time, and we would actually hold a position for them to come back to the house. Smoking will be permitted within designated areas outside of the house. There will be no smoking within the house. Also, we will be providing smoking cessation classes for those who wish to stop smoking. It's not realistic to expect that people recovering from addiction can just stop everything at once. If you've ever been a smoker and you've tried to quit, you know how hard that is. That's a right that we don't want to take away from them, but we also want to give them the tools to help them try to sustain. The home will be monitored by a security system. Visitation is only during designated visitation time and will not occur after 10 p.m. So the visitation, the way we've designed it, we're trying to finish up some aspects of the house itself. Depending on the individual need, some people will have no visitors because they don't have a support system or somebody that is vetted well enough to come visit them, okay? Because this will not be the friends that they used to use with, the family that they used to use with. These are people that have gone through the vetting system with Youth and Family Health Network to be on the list of visitors. They'll be receiving transportation for house residents. Here locally, you know, our goal is to utilize the resources we have here within Boone County because we have many resources. It was just bringing them all together. One of them is there is a local person that is a certified recovery coach and is also an Uber driver. And while our organization does not yet have a house open, we have been helping people leave incarceration and get to places like the Progress House or Dove Recovery House or wherever they needed to go because we don't have housing here for them. So to make sure that they can make their probation appointments, make their appointments with their therapist and their clinicals, then our organization provides transportation for them through an Uber driver who's a certified recovery coach and also through volunteers that have been vetted. We will not be holding like NA meetings and AA meetings at the property, therefore there'll not be the traffic from that, but we will have life skill training classes, nutrition classes, yoga, things like that to where there might be one person coming, an instructor or something else, but it won't be to where the meetings that we have there will not be open to the public. It's for the people that reside within the house. We're able to provide the group meetings and things like that to people that are outside of the residence via other means. We've already been doing that for over a year now. Residents are required to attend regular meetings outside of the house within the local self-help community. That's a condition of staying at the house. They must attend the recovery meetings, and they're also required to obtain employment. That employment will be daytime employment. It will not be night shift to where they're coming and going at all hours of the night. We will be helping them find employment using our local Work One, Vivian, our Work One representative here in Boone County. While licensing of the home is not a state requirement, what's really hard to sometimes wrap your head around is 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, there's no IC code that said if you wanted to have a recovery house and you wanted to help people, what the requirements were. Basically, all you had to do is have 2 people looking for sobriety and have a way to get them transported to and from their meetings. You could open what they call a recovery house. Well, since then, Indiana, number one, was failing this population because they weren't providing the resources they need. And then by saying that there's no guidelines, it was saying quietly that you just don't matter. That has changed. And Indiana Affiliation of Recovery Residences, that was initiated probably, it started 4 years ago, became in full effect probably 2 years ago. And the person that started that, his name is Daryl Mitchell. Daryl Mitchell enlisted myself and a couple of other advocates to help come up with the IARR certification to make sure the standards of practice that were in these homes were safe, not only for the residents, but safe for the neighborhoods. And so there is a list of requirements if you want to be a certified recovery residence. It's not required by the state, it's not mandatory, but we choose to be an IARR certified. And one of those requirements is all staff must have current background checks, drug tests, TB tests, etc. The residents will also be required to have TB tests before entering the home, and we will be doing those. Fire safety inspections are required every 2 years. Alcohol, drug-free environment is required. Regular maintenance and facility upkeep. This includes both inside and outside of the property. And the IARR does do spot checks, and they can come to the property once we've said we want to follow your certification, and they can check on that. Prescription drug dispensing will not be done on this property. A lot of people have probably heard of MAT, which is medically assisted treatment. There are many forms to recovery, one of them being medically assisted treatment. We have developed partnerships with local entities such as Riggs Healthcare, Integrative Wellness, Mental Health of America, and so we're able to provide the clinicals. If they need Vivitrol shot, we take them to Riggs, so that any of those medically assisted treatments they need are done off-site. So we will not be dispensing any prescription drugs on site. I've been asked what's our housing budget. It's been we've done a 3 to 4 year budget. We have a business plan that's 84 pages long. This was not just something we thought up overnight. This is something that has been worked on by many people. I invite everyone, there's information sheets over there. It has the list of our board of directors. It also lists that we would be what they consider a level 3 IARR certified home and what that means. So that is over there along with the brochure regarding the organization. Our housing budget for 2018 is approximately $150,000. The residents there will be working. They'll also be paying weekly program fees. We don't call it rent. We call it program fees because it's part of their recovery program. Funding sources, local fundraising campaigns that we have done and we continue to do. We've had a foundation grant, which is a matching grant, so we raise a certain amount of money and they match that grant 1-to-1, and private donations. Some of the expenses that we will incur within our housing will be reimbursable by what's called Recovery Works. Recovery Works is a state program that if somebody has been involved with the criminal justice system, they could qualify for Recovery Works, meaning that they can get their Vivitrol shots up to 3 for free, that they can get housing, help with their housing, that they can get medical help for free, they can get clinicals. All these things are reimbursed by the state, but it's not a grant. it's based on each individual case, and assessments will be done on each person, and their need for recovery works will be assessed at that time. Not everybody will utilize recovery works because not everybody is coming from the criminal justice system. There are people that actually have been battling addiction that have never had any run-ins with the law, okay? Also, there will be no residents that are what they call violent crime offenders. Many of these are low-level felons. I call them felons because once you have a felony, you're a felon, but they're crimes that have been committed during their active addiction. And they're looking for a step to get from whether it's incarceration or they've been down to treatment somewhere. And right now, unfortunately, for them to get treatment, it's within maybe an hour or two drive. You know, we took people to Fort Wayne last week to get them to treatment. We've got problems with bed availability and things like that. So those people have already been to detox, they've already been to treatment, or they've been incarcerated, and now they're coming to us to transition back into life, get the skills that they need to be productive citizens, and to rebuild their lives. A couple of our organization is focused on evidence-based education and practices. So one of the things that we have done over the last year is we provide community education, whether it's regarding PTSD, stress and anxiety, or it's the science of addiction, or it's doing wraparound programs for family members, because it's what you find is addiction doesn't, it's a family event. It affects everyone, not just the immediate family, but we have grandparents raising their grandkids and they don't know where to go for resources. Our organization is a hub of resources and we're able to provide that help that they need. And I'm just going to quote one of the sites because I feel like it's very important regarding some of the questions I see that people have had, and that is from the Center for Community Corrections, 2002, and Emmett and Shalinsky, 1989. Residential facilities do not tend to negatively affect public safety. In fact, contrary to popular fears, literature reviews suggest that these settings may actually increase property values in their neighborhoods. Similar patterns have been demonstrated on Oxford House recovery homes. Oxford House recovery homes have been around for approximately 70 years, maybe 80. There's probably 125 of them across the United States. They're ran off of the same evidence-based practices that we'll be implementing along with utilizing practices of other homes. So we've looked at what works, and that's what we're implementing here. So local communities reported Oxford House residents blended well into the neighborhood and made good neighbors. The majority of Oxford House neighbors interviewed had either gained resources, friendships, or a greater sense of security following contact with the Oxford House residents. Furthermore, no evidence of property devaluation was found for neighborhoods containing Oxford houses. Community members who knew of the Oxford House actually saw an increase in property value over an average of 3 years. That is all that I have, except if you have any questions that I have not already covered.
How many facilities do you operate?
This will be our first, yes. The way that we were founded was by identifying gaps within our county. Everybody knows that the whole nation is in an opioid crisis. I understand that the stigma of that takes education for the public, because a lot of people think that this was a choice. Everybody has a choice and they chose to do this. That's not always the case. What you're finding is many of these people have been prescribed these medications, have become addicted to them. They could be 17 years old, they can be 70 years old, and they can become addicted to these pain medications. Sometimes it's generational. You know, you find that they're incarcerated because their family members were incarcerated and they're using drugs. And evidence shows that if you provide supportive services to this population and you show them, hey, here's a life ring. One of the things that we find is working right now is we've actually had 3 people that we've picked up from the jail just in the last 45 days, and we've transported them to other places for recovery. Those people are still there. They haven't re-violated. They're not back in jail. That doesn't mean that maybe they had a relapse, but they started over, but they're not back in jail. And one of the things that we were able to do in opening conversation with our county stakeholders is that we've got community corrections on board with, hey, how can we help this population be successful? And like things as simple as releasing somebody from the jail at 12:01 at night, that's the policy. We release them at 12:01 at night. So what happens to them? They've been in jail for 4 months. They're walking out in their shorts, flip-flops, and t-shirt. They don't know where their clothes are because they're at a family member's house in another county or out in the country. They have no wallet or anything, but we're releasing them at midnight. So one of the things that our organization does is we act as a liaison with the Sheriff's Department and the mental health providers that are already in the jail, who are also on our board of directors, and we're doing warm handoffs. So we're making sure we don't lose track of those people. And instead of getting released at midnight, I've been able to say, hey, can we just hold them another 4 or 5 hours? We can get them to Volunteers of America by 8 a.m. So they keep them there so that we have a safe place for them to be upon release. This is our first house.
What do you do if you find drugs or alcohol on a client?
We have a director of nursing. Okay, so like we'll have a house manager on site, but then our house will be overseen by a director of housing. Our director of housing is an RN. She's a person in recovery for 5 years. She had to fight to get her RN license back. And she is also a person that works at another treatment center part-time. So I'm relying on her expertise to say this is the protocol we need to use. We're still ironing out a couple of those. We basically know how it's going to look, but there's a couple of things that she'll be helping. And unfortunately, she had to be at the treatment center tonight working somewhere else.
Do you have written protocol?
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm. And in addition to the house manager, somebody had asked, yes, we'll have a house manager, but we also have a backup. So we don't, it'd be really hard for that house manager to they'll live at that property, yes, but what if they need a weekend off? What's going to happen? We have a backup person, and that's in our budget also. Yeah.
You say typically they're Boone County residents?
Mm-hmm. That is our first requirement, is Boone County resident or ties to Boone County. As an example, a male that we just transported to Progress House, he is originally a resident of Montgomery County, but spent the last 3 years in Boone County, offended in Boone County, and had been in the Boone County jail. He would be somebody, or if it was a female, would be somebody who would be eligible to apply to live in on this property. There's an application process. They've got the random drug screening. It's all the protocol in place that has been shown to be effective.
I know this is an impossible question to answer, but what's a typical stay time?
Our facility will be 6 months to a year. Now, we're not going to just kick somebody out and that's based on each case. Every person's case will be evaluated as to what their needs are. Maybe they don't need a year, but they need at least 6 months, and they want to go to the next step. An example of that is a female that we helped get to Volunteers of America. And if you don't know what Volunteers of America is, that is a program, the program that's ran is called Fresh Start. It's ran by Volunteers of America in Indianapolis, but they only take people that are referred there by Division of Child Services. And as we know, our Division of Child Services, they have a huge caseload. we have a working relationship with case managers there, and we've presented to them. And so this female, we picked up at the jail. We had the intake arranged for her at Volunteers of America. We took her there. We provide transportation back and forth. She visits, you know, with her kids. They can be there. When she gets done there, after she's done her 72 days, she's going to be looking to come back to her county and start building her life where she's from. And that's where we come in.
Who pays for the drug testing and like you have an Uber driver or whatever, who pays for all this?
Our organization, we have received, like through the foundation grant that we received was basically out of Indianapolis, a women's organization. So they're going to grant us $10,000. If we raise $10,000, they'll match it. Also, we've received a couple small $3,000, $4,000 grants from our local Boone County, Drug-Free Boone County Coordinating Council, specifically to help with the transportation and to help provide certified recovery coaches.
So the client does not pay?
The client will be paying a weekly program fee, but we will be getting reimbursements from Recovery Works if they're in the criminal justice system. If they are not in the criminal justice system, they still have their program fees, and then anything like their transportation and stuff, our organization pays for those.
You had made back to the visitors, said that 1 day a week or whatever it is. I mean, you've got 10 residents. Mm-hmm. Do you expect 10 families to come to where there's, I don't know, you picked a number?
Yeah, no, we don't. And the reason that we don't is because on an average, so on our projections for the 3 years, we are estimating that our average resident number is going to be 7 on average, okay? If we look at the month, it could fluctuate by month. We watch how many people are getting released from our local jail, so it could fluctuate. So, but let's say it does have 10 residents, and there's 10 residents there for 6 months. The visitation, there are some people that will not have visitors because they don't have that support system. They don't have anybody that meets the guidelines or the vetting process to come visit them. But they will be able to go do off-site visiting through passes, to where a certified recovery coach would go with them and take them to do family visits and be there as a support system if they need it. So not all visits will be on the property.
Well, I guess my question is, your day is Thursday. Your visiting days are Thursday. Mm-hmm. And noon, 1 o'clock, I don't care what. But are all of your residents that have, I mean, are they,
no.
Do they have to make an appointment to come and visit, or?
No, it'd be scheduled. Like, let's say Sally and Debbie, their family visitations are on Monday, and 2 more are on Wednesday.
Okay.
And maybe none on Sunday. It's the director of housing and we have a treatment team. The treatment team includes a with-them physician, an RN, and then persons in recovery themselves that have had at least 2 years. Their input is invaluable on how do we handle some of those things.
Anybody else have any questions for her?
Nothing?
Okay, thank you.
All right, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is an open meeting, open to the public, and I'm sure there's going to be several people that want to speak. And I guess I would like to limit it to 3 minutes apiece, but I think I'm going to break that down. And is there anybody in here that's in favor? The people that are in here that are in favor of it, we'd like to hear from first. So here again, let's try and limit it to 3 minutes. I do have a stopwatch here, so whoever wants to come up and That's fine. Need your name and address.
My name's Amanda
And-
Fogel.
and wait a minute, you're gonna have to, before you leave, everybody that's gonna speak needs to sign in, so.
I signed in.
Okay, that's
Hold the
fine.
mic. Okay. Yeah, hold the mic. My name's Amanda Fogel. My address is 417 Southeast Street, and the proposed recovery home will be in my backyard, basically. I think this is an awesome opportunity. I've been researching for days since I heard, well, not quite since I heard, I've known for a little bit longer than that. But to see how this would affect my property value, being that I'm a property owner, I don't see any evidence of affecting my property value negatively. And a lot of these reports even say that most of the affecting my property value comes from judgmental hearsay from those communities. It's not actually factual. And I think that's everybody's main concern. I don't agree with that. I think that this is something that I don't know Michelle that well. I did know her children, that God has placed in her heart, and I think God's going to make it go the way it needs to go regardless. But I think it's a great opportunity for recovering women, and I don't mind it being in my neighborhood at all. I don't really have much more to say other than that.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Jim Morag. My office is at 114 South Meridian Street, which is where Michelle's office is. This community has a choice, and we have a big problem. And
Need a little, there, perfect.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
We have a choice, and we have a big problem here. And I don't think people generally understand how big this problem is and how this is just a beginning to help solve this problem. And like Michelle stated earlier, she started this 2 years ago. She's been working very hard to make this happen. If you ask Mike Nielsen, the sheriff of Boone County, how many people we need housing like this for, like right now, it's 60, not 10. We have an opportunity to start something here that nobody else is doing. People are coming to Michelle from Montgomery County and Hamilton County and Clinton County asking her how can she start this in their county. And we're barely starting it here. So what I'm telling you is this is an opportunity to start something big, but at the very beginning, very small. And the numbers, if you haven't studied them, are staggering. They're just absolutely staggering. And this is just the beginning of what needs to happen here to help Boone County solve a Boone County problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Larry Prager, and I am part of the board, but first of all, I just want to say that I'm a recovering alcoholic for 8 years. I do have 4 daughters. They are 14, 11, 8, and 5. My wife was a school teacher here in town, and to be part of this organization to give back, my daughters are a statistic. I also have been privileged to give a second chance in life. I've been arrested several times, but to give a second chance to get back in our community to lead at a local middle school over 100 kids every single Friday morning. Every Friday morning, there's 100 kids show up. I feed them breakfast. I give them a solid message. But the number one thing that is going on in our community is drugs and stipulation from drugs. Now, if it's a case that I've got to turn in, I have to turn in. But these kids are fearing so much what they're seeing at home as well. And so I'll give you one example. There has been 12 women that have been released from jail, and there's been 11 that have returned to jail. And the one lady that has not turned to jail has been under our care for over 120 days. She's 120 days clean. She's got a job, she's got a home, and she's got a support system. So all 11 other girls or ladies have returned back to jail. Now, a statistic for you. Boone County maximum for their jail is over 39 people right now. If you take that times per day, which is $38 a day,
2 minutes.
and you have a lot of tax dollars we're spending. That's over $300,000 a year that Boone County is paying because people are incarcerated. And so just to see that we have a way that we can really, truly make a difference. So thank you.
You.
Hi, my name is Robin Moffett, and my daughter has been a recipient of Michelle's care, as I have, for counseling and just someone to talk to. I don't have any statistics, but my daughter needs help, and Michelle was there to help and to guide us along the way, to look at her in her eyes and look at the desperation that she needs from point of being in her addiction and not knowing where to go after the addiction to be in recovery is so staggeringly scary to them, because in their addiction, they know what's happening. They know they're okay, they're flying high, but when you take away all those drugs and alcohol, they have nothing. They counted on the addiction to keep them. We're trying to take that away, but now they have no support system, they don't know where to go, and they don't even know who to turn to help them so they can be nurtured back. They're young. She probably started at 12 years old. When she's in an addiction, she's a 12-year-old versus a 34-year-old. So she needs so much support from everyone. She's still my daughter. I still love her. And she still has a lot to give. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yep. Yes.
Hi, my name is Mandy Carpet. My son, he is newly in recovery. He is right now residing in a home such as this but for men. The accountability there is great, and I'm thinking about, I live on North Lebanon Street, so I don't live right in the backyard of this facility that we're proposing. But the accountability that they have makes it so much more secure in my thought process. I would rather have someone that has to be accountable living next to me than somebody that doesn't have to be accountable, that has the means to go 24/7. They can leave their house at midnight, the times when it is the dangerous times for them to be out. They don't have any accountability to anybody. They can come and go. They can be on the streets. That's the ones I would be worried about if I was a neighbor to this type of facility. That's the ones we need to reach. And those are the ones that we need to be more concerned about than in a controlled population where they have to know, they have to be in at a certain time. They have to be drug tested. We don't have that in the general public and the neighbors around that don't have to come and go or be accountable to somebody. That's the ones that I think we should fear as neighbors around our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, I guess at this point, anybody that is opposed, please step forward.
My name is Josh Watkins. I live at 318 Southeast Street, right next door to this building. 3 years ago, my brother died from heroin. He was a drug addict for 15 years, in and out of prison, in and out of group homes, in and out of recovery centers. It didn't work. He could pass a drug test, no problem. There's stuff out there you can buy at gas stations to pass a drug test. That doesn't do anything. He had people throwing drugs to him at the recovery centers, at the homes. He got an infection from a dirty needle in prison. So, you know, he had to have, at 32 years old, he had open heart surgery because he got endocarditis from a dirty needle. You know, I know firsthand what this does. And I love these recovery homes. These people need help. I understand that. But this neighborhood, I haven't heard anybody say that they've looked at the crime in this area and the problems that we've had in this area. And you're more than welcome to speak with the Lebanon Police Department about every incident I've reported. I've had Officer Jim Miller come and pick dirty needles out of my front yard. Our kids can't play in our front yard until I walk the yard. I have to walk around my house. My wife's been in the backyard with our kids when drug addicts have walked up trying to find something. I've lived here for 10 years. My car's been broken into 12 times. At one incident, I went to put my daughter in my car. This is documented with the Lebanon Police Department. There was a drug addict in my car, high out of his mind. I had to physically drag him out of my car while my 6-year-old runs and screams into the house. So, what you're doing by allowing this in this area would be like putting me in a buffet and telling me not to eat anything. You're putting these people in a bad situation, and you're enabling them. This is not a good area for it. I fully support group homes and recovery centers, but this is going to cause a problem. The lady, the applicant, she didn't say anything about the crime in this area or the problems we're having. It really needs to be looked at because we're just throwing these people into a worse situation, and it's just going to be open season for them. They're going to relapse. This is a bad area for it. And I'm sure you can look at all the crime data from the police department. There's been heroin needles and spoons found in the Hardee's parking lot, and they posted on the Lebanon, all the chatter pages and stuff online. So it's here, and we're going to put a home for recovering addicts right in the middle of it. And I don't want my kids to have to keep going out in the yard. Daddy, Daddy, I found a needle, when I got to explain to my little kids, you know, this is a bad idea. It's a bad place. It's not the location for it. That's my only concern right there. This is a bad place for it.
Thank you.
George Piper, 504 East Superior Street. I just want to say first, I do like the idea of Youth and Family Health Network assisting people. I think Ms. Standiford, she answered a lot of questions that I had about this facility. My pastor's on the board of this organization, so I know that they must be something that wants to do right. You know, you hate the sin, not the sinner. But I guess, yeah, I do have to question, though, whether this is the best location. And I'm going to do that here with some statistics I found, or some information I found on the Indiana Affiliation of Recovery Residents website. There are approximately 19 homes that are in cities under 100,000 people that are recovery homes that they have listed on their website that you can Google map. Of these 19, only 2 are, I guess, meet the criteria or meet the circumstance that this one is, which is in the middle of a block in a residential neighborhood with a home on each side of the street. The other 17 are, there's different characteristics of them. Now, approximately of these 19, about half of them, about 9 of them are in residential areas. And again, I'm not a city planner or a plotter, but they are in residential areas. But of these other ones, they're either located maybe on a corner where there's maybe a business next to it. Some of them have empty lots next to them. I think, and again, I can't explain why that the circumstances, characteristics of the group of these other homes are different than what this one is. But I think that's something to consider. That we have a street where you have a lot of families who live on it. We're also blessed to have a church in the middle of our block. We have a farmers market at the end of our block. We have of course this building at the end of the street as well. And I just think that that's something we need to consider, is that maybe the best area for this. And again, you know, I can't answer, you know, what other facilities or properties that the group may have looked at, and maybe this is the best one, you know, I don't know. Again, I applaud Ms. Standiford for answering a lot of the questions that I had, because, you know, if this is approved, you know, I want to make sure that it is done right. You know, it's not in my backyard, it's doing it right in my backyard. And, you know, Superior Street, we might not be the best street, but, you know, it's our street, and we just want to see what's best for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Vicki Hawkins, and I live at 218 East Superior Street, which is directly across the proposed site for this. I've heard that we are not allowed to speak against this facility because of the type of facility it is. And yet, all evening, all we've heard is it should be here because of the type of facility it is. If they can speak why it's such a wonderful facility, why are we not legally allowed to speak as to why we feel it's a bad facility? Lebanon already has 2 sober home living residences. One's on Ransdell and one's on Lakeshore. We have a recovery place for men's alcoholics. We have the Methodist home for disturbed children. I'm not against any of these places. I want to know at what point does our little neighborhood and our little community become saturated with people in these sober living homes, and all the needs and the facilities for Boone County appear to be in Lebanon. There are other cities, other towns, other communities in Boone County than Lebanon. We're not biased against them, and yet Ms. Standiford's quote in the newspaper is that these people that will be coming into our community will be safer neighbors than some of the people already on our street. I'd like to have that proven to me. I'd like to see them prove that they are going to be better neighbors. I'd like to see them prove that they're going to improve our community. I'd like to see them prove that they're going to raise our home values. They can say on the internet that, no, it doesn't affect you. I can also find on the internet where realtors have stated that they are not allowed to say there's a sober living home, which makes it difficult. But if you... Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Grace McMenamin. I live at 322 East Superior. I hadn't planned on speaking, and I just had surgery.
You need to lean.
Sorry, I'm usually a loud talker. My name is Grace McMenamin. I live at 322 East Superior Street. I hadn't planned on speaking, and I just had surgery, so you'll have to bear with me. But I felt the need to say something. No one here seems to really be opposed to having a recovery center in Lebanon. We understand it's an epidemic and it needs to be addressed. I am completely sympathetic to people that have addictions. I had a cousin who passed away from an addiction. I get it. And I applaud you for wanting to help people. But the fact of the matter is, regardless of what this house is turned into, whether it's addicts or men out of prison or kids, it doesn't matter. It's still going to affect my property value. And I kind of wanted to give you the opinion of someone who just bought the house a year ago, who is under the typical age for that neighborhood. I would not have bought my house had it been there. There are other options. There are so many houses on the market right now. I don't even have kids. And it would have been an issue for me because I don't need to invite the possibility of there being an issue in my life. I don't need it. I wouldn't have bought it. And when I heard it was happening, my immediate comment to my husband was, boy, I wish we had known sooner. Or I wish whoever decided that it wasn't going to be a blight on the neighborhood had asked the people who actually live in the neighborhood. Because we can't sell. Because we would have to disclose. And as I said, I wouldn't have bought it. I doubt any of the people who are against it would buy it. That's a lot of people. I mean, you have to look at the size of the group of people in here. And the amount of them who are against it, it just doesn't make sense. So, that's it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Angela Pacey. I live at 507 East Superior. I just bought my house in July. I don't know a lot about Lebanon, and when I heard this was happening, I went and I drove around and I really looked at how the city is, where the businesses are, where the residential areas are, and you want to put what is essentially a business in the middle of a residential area. They provide a service, they collect funds. It's a business. So why can't they put it on Indianapolis Avenue, which is a mixture of businesses and homes, or on Lebanon Street, where it's a business, where it's a mixture of businesses and homes? And there is a house at 518 South Lebanon for $89,000, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 3,500 square feet. Same price, the same size, and I'm assuming the same price as the one on Superior. And if I had known this was going to happen, I never would have moved here. I would have moved to Clayton, I would have moved to Pittsboro, but not here. But I moved here because at any given evening, at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, there's 6 or 7 police officers at the Casey's standing around doing nothing because there's no crimes to solve, there's no bad men to catch, there's nothing to do, and I like it, and I feel safe. And you're going to put essentially 10 felons in a house 3 blocks away from me with one woman or a man living with them. I used to be a Boy Scout leader, and I had 15 to 20 boys, and I couldn't do it with 2 adults, and I don't know how you're going to monitor 10 adults with 1 adult monitoring them. I'm not opposed to them having someplace safe to live. I just don't want it 2 blocks from my house, and it doesn't make sense to put a business in the middle of a residence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Way down. Hi, my name is Sue Huss, and I live at Sue Sumter, I'm sorry. I live at 420 East, we were just married. I live at 420 East Superior, and we moved there in June, and we came to town to get away from a lot of things. We moved from Anderson. A lot of the problems that we were seeing in Anderson was what we wanted to get away with. A lot of drug problems, people walking by the house, tooted to the moon, you could tell they were. But we came here to be closer to kids. We're getting close to retirement, and we bought the house there. But I'm with Angie. I wouldn't have bought it had I known that this was going there. We had big problems when we bought the house, had to do a lot of renovations. And I know when Angie moved in, the first thing she told me, I said, well, why Lebanon? She's out of Indianapolis. She said, well, Lebanon looked like Mayberry to me. Well, to me, you know, her Mayberry's gone, and we have this to deal with. I didn't hear him say who's going to pay for the drug test. I don't know if we got an answer on that. I don't know, but I'm worried about it. Maybe they'll have supervised visitation or certain hours, but still I believe their better halves, men, husbands, whatever, will still be coming up and down the street, you know, trying to find them, look for them. And who else may it bring? I mean, I'm kind of concerned about being out working in the yard. In Anderson, I had how many junkies hit me up for $1 or cigarettes or want to use my phone. And it totally, I'd run in the door. I thought, oh God, here she comes again. Because she'd be talking to thin air and going off. And, you know, I knew she had a problem. And we're not unsympathetic. I'm not working anymore. I would volunteer to go help this home or whatever they need. But I'm just saying, in the neighborhood, it's the wrong thing to do. We don't need it there. We wouldn't have bought if we'd known it. Thank you.
Come up here in the front row, and then you can be next.
Oh, did I cut him off?
Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Bill Petrie. We live in the 500 block of East Superior Street. We've been here since 1995. First, I want to make clear that we're not unaware or insensitive to the drug problem. I've had a first cousin who died way too young as a result of a drug habit. My wife has a brother who's quadriplegic as a result of heroin. We're not unaware. And we understand the need. However, I have to agree that a residential area is not the place for this kind of house. I'm asking you, would you encourage your kids to buy a house on our street and raise your grandkids next door? With that said, I just don't, I have to agree that a residential area, no matter where it is not the place for this kind of house. There is a need. It's the right thing to do. But it's just not not just my neighborhood, but not any neighborhood. It needs to be, doesn't have to be remote, out in the middle of nowhere. I wouldn't think, but I think more in line with what's been said before. Some of the other properties that are available in the community right now at similar cost, and maybe at a location that's a little less risk, and to hurting property values, that's unknown and unknowable for anybody in here. We don't know what kind of effect it's going to have. We can speculate, and the probability is it's not good. Two reports, one from 1999 and one from a later date. Pretty small sample size to make a judgment, come to a conclusion with. So I'd like you to reconsider the rezoning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan McMiniman. I live at 322 East Superior Street. I know there's been a lot of conversation about what's going into this building. My concern is with itself the rezoning. We are a residential community. We have families that live here. It's what makes up who we are, what makes up our community. I have neighbors here that I know, I get along with. They've come over in times of need. We are a community. The rezoning, repurposing of the homes that make up this community introduce change into that. And my concern is what happens the next time something comes through. Say somebody wants to bring in a hair salon instead of a house. And they say, well, you've already been able to rezone once. Comes again, another business or a non-for-profit setting up shop, taking up these homes and taking away this community. My concern is ultimately one that by introducing this change, we are inviting further changes in the future. That eventually we will not be a community of small families, of people who know their neighbors, who look out for one another, but instead will be a mix of businesses. They'll turn Superior, this cute neighborhood, this cute community, into something like Lebanon Street or Indianapolis Avenue, which if people want to live there, that's fine, but that's not where we live. We live in a community. I'd like to thank the board so much for your time today, and hopefully, and thank you for listening for all of our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's any more, I'll listen to 3 more, and we far exceeded the 10-minute limit, but if anybody else wants to come up and speak their piece, I'm willing.
My name's David Martin. I live at 623 North Meridian Street. I'm here opposed for the change. I think one of the reasons is because it appears to me that they fail almost 4 out of 5 of the conditions that they have to be approved by the Board of Zoning. The first one is public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Most of the people who are going to be coming here have severe health problems that'll be going into our community. If you think that's not a problem, then go talk to the people in Austin, where they started out with a hepatitis epidemic, now it's an AIDS epidemic, and now their county is almost totally underwater, totally broke. And that's the direction we'd be heading. As far as safety, you're talking about convicted felons that are coming here. This fellow that was up here a minute ago told you that 11 out of 12 are already back in jail. Now, they don't have automobiles, so they're coming to your neighborhood, or they're coming to where their friends are going to take them next. And their friends aren't normally their friends and their family. Their friends are normally other convicted felons. And so we might as well change the sign out in front of Lebanon, the friendly city for felons, because that's what you're introducing to your city. We don't need to blow up another neighborhood. We have places all over Lebanon, empty buildings that are sitting in commercial districts. Now this lady talked about, oh, they got to be next to a transportation center. Hell, we don't have any buses or cabs or anything driving around that's going to take them to a job. Where are most of them going to work in Lebanon anyway when they get out of jail and they have a record as a felon? There's not very many places they're going to work anyway. No one's going to hire them. They're not going to be able to run a cash register. Any place that's a business isn't going to hire them. So where are they going to work? That's what I don't understand. It's admirable that these people want to help these people. I can really appreciate that. But they have a business model that fails everywhere that it is. It's never worked anywhere. Right now, 80% of the drug addicts that are felons go right back to prison. So all we're doing is babysitting them until they had enough. Maybe they're here 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, then they're going right back into our jail. Anybody that comes here and stays in their house and is arrested is going back into our jail, which is already overpopulated. And every time there's an ambulance run, a police run, any kind of problem at this home, who's going to pay for it? The citizens of Lebanon are going to pay for it, not the people running the nonprofit organization. And I don't know how the hell they're going to operate on $150,000 a year. Hell, I could barely feed 3 kids on that. I can't imagine 10 criminals. And they're going to have one person watch them 24 hours a day. 24 hours a day, that's insane. And are they going to be armed? Are they going to have weapons? Because they're guarding felons. And there's going to be felons coming to see them.
3 minutes.
I'd like to take my wife's proxy. She's not here this evening. I'd like to speak for 3 more minutes if I could. 2 other items that don't pass, that need to be passed. It says the variance will not affect the value of the adjacent property. Well, we no longer live in an era where the realtor can just say, oh, it's a nice school, it's a nice neighborhood. It only takes about 30 seconds to go on the internet and find out, where do all the sex offenders live? Where are all the registered felons living right now before we find out, oh, we better not buy that home that's right across the street. The next one, it's a need for a variance for some peculiar reason. We're going to put 10 people into a 3,000 square foot house. Now, I assume, what do they have? Maybe 2 bathrooms at the most. They're going to have a kitchen to feed 10 or 11 people. I'm assuming that we're going to have the Board of Health come and check their food service. I'm sure they have to fall under those guidelines for sure. And I would almost be sure that if they're going to house that many people, that they do have to have the fire protection. I'm not sure. And I'm sure they would have to bring the building up to code as far as handicapped people being able to egress and ingress the building. I'm sure they'd have to bring all those standards up. The last one here, it says it shouldn't interfere with the City of Lebanon's comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan, it's a land use development pattern that will provide a healthy, safe, and beneficial living environment. I think they fail on all three of those. So that's just like 3 out of 5 that I've spoken about. I won't take any more of your time, but it says they have to pass each one of the 5 conditions. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 5. Each one of them has to be passed. If they fail on one of them, you don't have to agree to change it. That's about all I've got to say. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Bill. I'm 406 East Superior. Been there for about 100 years.
I need your last name.
I've never had to call a cop. I've never had to deal with this situation either. I want to call a cop. That, to me, is you guys. How can it be when somebody comes in with such a spirited idea and use that as their case for this hearing? Great, it's wonderful. It's better than I'd ever attempt to do. I personally don't care about people with drug habits. They really hold a lower place in our communities, right? Okay, we overlook all that. We overlook a lot more than people might know in that sorry little neighborhood. I lost my point. Take that wonderful business opportunity up to the corner. Who was here when the drinkers place went in? Right here on Lebanon Street. I drive by at 1,000,000, we all do. We don't see guns firing and we don't see smoke coming out of windows. That's not the threat. But why face all this trouble when you could have done that? Has anybody done it? Did anybody, I lost track. Was there any complaints about this men's place? Did anybody object to it going in there when it did? Let alone did any taxpayers complain about funding it or whatever happened, how it happened. This is a for-profit idea in its infancy, and that's why they need a cheap, lowly piece of property to get it off the ground. Why not find that? I know that property exists. Somebody would donate a building if they got the word about her wonderful idea. But keep it the hell. Don't let any one of these people have to object. Whether it's this neighborhood or a neighborhood of despicables. It doesn't matter. I don't ever want to have to confront somebody trying to make progress. Do it in the right place, and if you have to spend a few more dollars, for crying out loud, get it the hell out of anybody's neighborhood. Period. It's too bad it is what it is, but for Christ's sakes, you got to consider what that man that owns that property right next door. I don't know how I'd feel if I was, you're just out of sight. Just out of sight, and it's one of the prettiest houses on the street. And they want to put 10 chain-smoking drug rehab, whatever they are. I don't know. I don't care. Put 10 of them in your mind on that front porch on that house, and every one of them enjoying a Marlboro Red or something. Or who knows what they're smoking. But it's going to look like something out of a movie. Everybody on the stoop. Everybody hanging around, congregating, and then their friends, their good friends are coming over.
All right. Thank you. We're going to close the public end of the meeting right now. That's already closed. We will take rebuttal.
I sold real estate in Boone County for over 20 years. I'm a second generation real estate agent here. I've lived here all my life. My family still sells real estate in this community. I know the real estate laws, and I also know that nowhere on a seller's disclosure form is it required that you disclose that you have any type of a mental health facility next door to you, within a mile of you, or anything else. Excuse me, but on the seller's disclosure form is you have to disclose if you're within 1.5 miles of an airport, okay? So,
let her speak, please.
And so I'm a little confused because I hear that this is a neighborhood where they find needles, they have really bad people. There's some facts about this street that I know, okay? I know that there's 3 people actively dealing drugs within 2 blocks of this. Please? Why do you want to come to our community? I am also aware that there is 1 sex offender that resides on that same block, 3 sex offenders total. 2 of those are sexually violent predators, and 2 are offenders against children. And so something that's confusing to me is that the people that have moved from other residences onto this street are okay with moving within a 1/4 mile of people with these kind of violent actions, but they're not. To say I would not have lived on this street had I known that you were going to be bringing people that don't want to drink and don't want to do drugs anymore into my street. So for me, I'm a little mixed up because I hear that it's a great neighborhood, and I also hear that it's a neighborhood with lots of violence. So I'm a not-for-profit organization, not a for-profit organization, and when we consider the best housing options, there's a couple of things that we look at, and we don't go into this lightly. It's not like we just decided this is the house and we have worked on this for years as to what is the good environment. So for the people that are concerned about what's already going on in their neighborhood, I have stacks of evidence, not just Indiana, but across the United States, that shows that where there are recovery residences located, it helps build a sense of community and helps deter crime in the area. There is also no evidence whatsoever, and that comes from the IU School of Health, from Dr. Carrie Lawrence. It comes from people from DePaul University, that there is no negative effects on real estate values because people are choosing to live there. And I have to say that to hear all this opposition, to hear the cruel, horrible things that have been said about people that are in our county. My son owned a business, has a wife that's a teacher at our school, has 2 beautiful children, had master's degrees and all these other things. I have another family member who was scholar at his school. Still, they were never involved with the law. They weren't violent. They never hurt a person in their life, but they were seeking recovery. Both those people died in the transition time from treatment to coming back to their house. This is an important part of our community. If we are going to help not only the people in addiction, but the families of people in addiction, the children of people in addiction, we have to show that Boone County is taking a proactive approach. And I will say that Sheriff Mike Nielsen is a great asset for our county because not only is he on our board, but he 100% is pushing for us to help this population that we've let down.
Good, we're glad. Just don't put it in our neighborhood.
Okay, the lady's speaking. Everybody out here has had their chance. Please be quiet and let her speak.
She gets to speak times when we don't.
She's the
applicant. Because according to
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't want
90% of the neighborhood don't know.
Okay, but you're okay with living with 7 people that are registered sex offenders? So,
Quiet down, please.
okay, so what I'm going to say is this property is zoned multifamily. It used to be a beauty shop at one time. I used to sell sweet corn on that sidewalk when I was a little girl, and I remember the lady that had lived in that house, and she had a little beauty shop there. And, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Does the board have any comments or suggestions?
Just not in our backyard.
It's over with. The public portion is over with. Does the board have any questions for the applicant or?
I have a question for Ben.
Yes, sir.
Ben, at the top end of this, at the beginning of this, we talked about the zoning and the comprehensive plan, and this has a slightly different definition than what's in our comprehensive plan. Can you go through that again, please?
Sure. So we do in our Unified Development Ordinance have a definition for group home, which is categorized as a residential use. So this generally operationally is like a group home, except for our definition suggests it needs to be certified by a specific state agency, which this is not. It's certified by a different agency. So just by that small technicality, it doesn't fall under our definition of group home, and it's not specifically contemplated in the UDO. So it's really because of a small item in the definition of group home, which makes this not qualify as a group home. Thus the reason why we're here for a use variance.
Okay. The organization that it is sponsored by or certified by, I believe it was the
Indiana Association of Recovery Residences.
Right, IRR. Has the city done any research into that organization?
I've looked through their website. In terms of actually contacting them, no, I have not.
Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay, since there are no other questions, I guess it's time to entertain a motion from one of the members.
Does the attorney, Chris, do you have anything that you want to say?
I can answer any questions individually if you have them, or
okay.
any requests you have collectively as a group, I'll be happy to.
Okay. I don't have any questions. I just didn't know.
Someone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we approve the variance of use request, subject to the approval of the variance use does not run with the land and is limited to this applicant and to the proposed use. Any change in the organization providing oversight to the facility or significant change in the operation will require review and approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And number 2, the recovery group home is limited to 10 residents and 1 full-time care provider on site. Any increase in the number of residents would require review and approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And number 3, that the applicant provide 3 paid parking spaces assessed by the alley adjacent and to the south of the subject property.
Could we add the fire?
Okay, the commercial fire inspection.
Yes, please. Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Kelly, would you take roll?
Gordon Perry.
Aye.
Bruce Polly.
Aye.
Ron Edwards.
I've got to say aye, but I would like to read this first. This public notice, this is the BZA is required to hold a public hearing in its consideration of the variance use. None of the public hearing must be properly served and advertised in the accordance with the Indiana law and BZA rules for this procedure. But also the analysis is that basically if we reject this, it will be basically a federal suit against the city.
Okay, no. The public end is over. Public.
He was talking directly to us, so.
No, he was reading something for the record.
He was
on
talking
his
for the
vote.
record. Chad, how do you vote?
Chad Kiger.
Aye. Lori Gross.
Aye.
Approved unanimously. Good luck with your endeavor.
Hang out here for a little while.
Yeah. I mean, you can't reject something.
No, our hands are tied.
I think we've got to hang around till midnight.
I think somebody should escort her out. Her family's here, though.
I really hate it.
I think she's going.
How do you do that?
I know.
Well, Larry Prager's here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, her family's here. A friend of his is here. She's covering Fred's here. Thank you. Thank you. But, you know, I think she presented herself very well, though.
I'm sorry?
I think she presented herself very well. She had everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't you think? Anybody wanted like I said, I got a live one across the street from me, so I lost one. He was in a halfway house, and he was in transition, so I get it. I've got one that's a cousin that's recovering, and her mentality is she's trying to put herself back into society. You think that?
You know, though,
but why isn't he on this board?
You know, I'm for it. It's in your neighborhood. You know, that's the mentality of everything.
Yeah. But no, we didn't. But I was shaking.
All the notes.
Oh my gosh, I ran out of paper and my pen ran out of ink.
Thanks for coming. I know. You got it. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. So I have my own scanner now. I have my own scanner now. So
I think we got to close the meeting.
Yeah, physician.
I make a motion to
I'm getting ready to go on vacation.
Okay, we got a motion to adjourn and seconded. All in favor, aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Ed, what?